It is Titans Today by Chat Sports. I'm Chase Sr. Appreciate all of you for watching us here on Newsbreak. And if you're a big Titans fan and you want all of the best and latest Titans news and rumors, be sure to hit that follow button here on the app. The question that we're tackling on today's show, is Mike Vrabel a top 10 coach? Is he a top 15 coach? Let's get into it. So CBS Sports put together a list ranking all 32 coaches in the National Football League. Where did Mike Vrabel of the Tennessee Titans check in? At number 14. Is he underrated, properly rated, overrated? Going to pose that question for you later. But through 3 seasons, I think Vrabel has exceeded expectations. I'm not sure anybody expected him to be as good of a coach as he has in 3 years in Nashville. He's 29-19 in 3 years so far. That's a career winning percentage of 60%. It's a very, very elite number. Now, I did reference that list of top head coaches in the NFL, listed 1 through 32, put out there by CBS Sports. And the top 5, it's hard to argue with. Andy Reid of the Kansas City Chiefs atop the list. Now that he has that Super Bowl, I agree with it. Bill Belichick, yes, Patriots went 7-9 last year, but do you really want to go against Bill Belichick in a big game? You can make the argument he's the best coach of all time and a guy who tutored Mike Vrabel. Number 3, John Harbaugh. Year in and year out, the Ravens are competing for playoff spots. I agree with him being in at number 3. Sean Payton at number 4, he's an offensive wizard. The big one here, Sean McDermott at 5. A lot of people might think that's too high, but my goodness, he has done a tremendous job of building and establishing a culture in Buffalo where that team is so dangerous on both sides of the ball. Given how the Bills performed last year, I'm okay with Sean McDermott in at number 5. This is where it kind of gets interesting. Sean McVay at 6, okay. Pete Carroll at 7 has the Super Bowl he's been to 2. Bruce Arians, now that he has a Lombardi trophy, in at number 8. Matt LaFleur at number 9, yeah, he's gone 13-3 in his first 2 years, but the Packers have underperformed in the playoffs. Mike Tomlin, has never had a losing season? Okay, you can chalk him in at number 10. Here's where Mike Vrabel sits, at 14, behind Kevin Stefanski, behind Frank Reich, and Kyle Shanahan, who I'd probably say is bordering on being a top 10 coach. I'd probably put him in at number 9, and Vrabel is ahead of Mike Zimmer. I don't really even think that's a contest. Vrabel is definitely a better coach than Mike Zimmer, and has had a lot more success, especially recently with the Titans, more so than the Minnesota Vikings. Here's why I think Vrabel is at 14. He's not an offensive wizard. He's not that sexy offensive schematic guy who's just going to give you a bunch of quotable things at press conferences and break down offensive football and be attractive in that regard. He's just a football guy. Frankly, a guy who I'd love to crush beers with. That is certainly on my bucket list. But I mentioned this earlier. Vrabel has exceeded expectations in his 3 seasons in Nashville so far. I don't think anybody could have predicted that Vrabel, through his first 3 seasons, would win 60% of his games. Yeah, Vrabel has been tremendous. 9-7 in his first 2 years, 11-5 last year. They lost that opening playoff game to the Baltimore Ravens, a really tough matchup given how hot the Ravens were at the time. I will say this, though. The defensive philosophy in 2020 was weird, and I didn't really agree with the plan. Remember earlier on, prior to the season, Vrabel was like, we're not going to have a defensive coordinator, and then he's had a defensive coordinator. The Titans' defense, which is his specialty, was awful. They couldn't generate a pass rush at all, and because of that, opposing offenses were able to pick them apart. I think they fortified that unit, especially bringing in Bud Dupree and making some changes to the defensive side of the football, but the defensive philosophy was a little bit weird. Here's why I love Vrabel. He's established a culture within an organization that really, really needed it, and an organization that didn't seem to have a plan or any direction. Now they do. And going into 2021, this team could be really, really special. That offense is loaded. Ryan Tannehill, probably a top 10 quarterback if you look at the production. You have Julio Jones as well, who you brought in that trade. Derrick Henry coming off that 2,000-yard season. I still think he has a couple of prime years left. And A.J. Brown is a dog. So Titans in 2021, I think they're the front runners in the AFC South. It's going to be between them and the Indianapolis Colts. But Vrabel, you have to be happy with the job that he's done. And I think he is a top 15 guy, so he is properly rated for me. But what do you think, Titans fans? How would you rate him? Type O for overrated, Type U for underrated or type P for properly rated. Be sure to get your votes in the comment section down below.